Berachot 22. We have a discussion yesterday about hirhur and dibur, which means if you are about to pronounce prayer while your body is not in a state of purity, if you can do that. We explained that there are different categories, and we explained that the differences in a stage of purity. To abbreviate what we study so then we can go a little quicker, it was a time that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, told the people several days, 3 days before receiving the Torah to stay away from any impurity. Then it was later a time that Ezra, upon returning the Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash, put a dakana, a special decree, to duck in a mikveh before praying. Then it's a bigger discussion, what and how much. Do we require it in nowadays? Do we require it for every prayer? Do we require it in a such amount of 40 se'ah, full amount of mikveh? Do we allow that in only impuring 9 se'ah on a person, like some water at the top of his head? Or we said it's only in the past, you don't require it anymore. So all these different stages, mainly is the idea that there is a certain sanctity when you are praying. Later we even discuss the issue like bad odor, praying, if you're walking in the field, you're walking in the farm, or all kind of situation, that what stage you have to be in order to pray in a sense of body, state of proper stage of the body. So now we go a little quicker and then we explain it. 22. ומי יתלה לרבי יהודה הרהור, והתניא בעל קרי שאין לו מים לטבול, קורא קריאת שמע ואינו מברך, לא לפניה ולא לאחריה, ואוכל פתאום ומברך לאחריה ואינו מברך לפניה, אבל מערער בליבו ואינו מוציא בשפתיו, דברי רבי מאיר. רבי מאיר hold that if someone is in the Baal Keri, we explain that someone is in a state of impurity because it has the issue of discharge. So we say that he can pronounce Shema, but he's not reciting the blessing neither before nor after. And he may eat bread, but he make the grace after meal, Birkat Hamazon, but he's not making the blessing before, and just have the contemplation in his head, but he cannot pronounce the word because it's inappropriate to stay before the Lord while your body is not in the right purity, state of purity. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ben kach uben kach motzi b'sedav. Rabbi Yehuda said no difference. He can, in both cases, he can articulate in his lip. אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק, הסרן רבי יהודה כהלכות דרך ארץ. רבי יהודה equated to הלכות דרך ארץ. So soon we explain what is a הלכות דרך ארץ. The דרך ארץ in general is a proper conduct. For example, ethics of the father is considering הלכות דרך ארץ. But later we explain what he meant by this statement. The Tanya. והודעתם לבניך ולבני בניך. The scripture said that you should teach them, known to your children and grandchildren. וכתיב בתרי, יום אשר עמדת לפני השם אלוקיך בחורב. The day that you stand before the Lord in the place called Chorev, which is Mount Sinai. So now we juxtapose both, and we said, מה להלן באימה וביראה וברטט ובזיע, אף כאן באימה וביראה וברטט ובזיע. מכאן אמרו, הזבים והמצורעים ובאים על נידות, מותרים לקרות בתורה ובנביאים וכתובים, לשנות במשנה ובגמרא ובהלכות והגדות, אבל פרק קראין אסורים. So it's important to conceptualize the whole idea. The idea is, Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak hold that originally Rabbi Yehuda hold that Baal Keri cannot pray like everybody else. The way that Tanakama said is, even he hold that Rabbi Yehuda hold the same as Takanat as well. But he hold here that there is here two different categories. So he said that basically there are people who did the discharge intentionally. There are situations of people that they have it unintentionally. What does that mean? For example, Zav, someone who is a discharge because of sickness. Okay, so that's one category. Versus someone that it happens because he directly or indirectly caused it. So he hold and he said, those certain people that have, for example, leprosy, okay, so they are permitted to read from the Torah, prophet, Mishnah, study, everything, halacha, agada. However, Baal Keri may not study these things, right? Especially when it's come to impurity, because he said that you have to be in a state of full purity when you study Torah, and that's an issue of purity. In other words, he categorized the cause of those discharge. Rabbi Yossi אומר, שונה הוא בהרגיליות, ובלבד שלא יציע את המשנה. Now we have a discussion over category. Since you tell me that there are certain limitations, you take Mr. A and Mr. B. Mr. A has a discharge because he's just a sick person, right? He has a leprosy, he has a physical issues. He absolutely have no control over that, okay? You have Mr. B that he, did all kind of things, even indirectly, to cause that to happen. So now you categorize that. So the first one said that it's clearly yes or no. The first one is okay, the second one no. Rabbi Yossi hold no. He can, Balkari may study the Mishnah, which is in particular familiar to him. But he said, but other than that, ובלבד שלא יציע את המשנה, but he cannot elaborate on the Mishnah, which means he said that look, what we said before. We said before that when receiving the Torah, it was fear, ziyah, and all of that. That people have a great awe when they study the Torah. So when people have a great awe when they study Torah, therefore people should have the same category. So someone who has these issues cannot study Torah like everyone else. That's what I understand. But here he said, let's categorize. Mishnayot, for example, that he know it well, and he doesn't need to involve with elaboration, explanations, and that's fine. But if he need to go to all these explanation and research, etc., that's really considering a heavy study of Torah. One opinion. Next, רבי נתן בן יוסף אומר, מציע את המשנה ואינו מציע את הגמרא. רבי נתן בן אבשלום אומר, אף מציע את הגמרא ובלבד שלא אמר אזכרות שבו. So in other words, this is two opinions that hold. One said that he can do Gemarah, but not a Midrash, because again, it's psukim, is a sentence, and it's divrei Torah, and he is Balkari. The other one said azkarot, that he will not mention anything that relate with name of Hashem. For example, you're reading Megillat Esther, just as an example, you do not have name of Hashem. Another one, Rabbi Yochanan הסנדלר תלמידו של רבי עקיבא משום רבי עקיבא אומר לא ייכנס למדרש כל עיקר ואמרי לה לא ייכנס לבית המדרש כל עיקר. So it's a two opinion. One said that he can walk in the Beit HaMidrash, the place that study, like now. He can stand or sit on the back and only listen. That's it. The other one said, no, he cannot even walk in. Right? He is impure, he cannot walk in. So, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shoneh u'bilchot derech eretz. Remember we said that we discussed the point of derech eretz. What is derech eretz? So Rashi here explain, הלכות דרך ארץ, כגון דרכן של תלמידי חכמים שהיא ברייתא ופרק בן עזאי נותן ארבעה דברים אלי בו. Remember the Ben Azai, the chapter 4 in ethics that said that there are 4 categories. So anything related to Hilchot Derech Eretz, something that teach you in ethics, like chapters of the fathers. So that's something that we allow him. But Divrei Torah, discussion, the level that we have now, that's not. So you see here several opinions in a different category, different opinion between the rabbis, what we allow or what not if someone in a state of Baal Keri. Maser Rabbi Yehuda Shra Keri. Here is a story that we need to learn from that story. Rabbi Yehuda, it happens that he experienced discharge, emission of semen. והיה מלך על גב הנהר, ואמרו לו תלמידיו, רבנו שנינו לנו פרק אחד בהלכות ארץ, ירד וטבל ושנה להם. He were walking at the top of the river, and a student said, teach us something in Hilchot Derech Eretz. We just explained what is Hilchot Derech Eretz, like ethics. So what did he do? He dug himself in a river, and then he told them. אמרו לו, למתנו רבנו שונהו בדרכות דרך ארץ. You told us that just early what we learned, that Rabbi Yehuda hold that what? He says, study Torah, pilpulim, deep. That's not. But derech eretz is fine. That's he just said earlier. And now all of a sudden, he has that issue, and he went and he dug himself in the river. So he's like, you're contradicting what we teach her. He says something very, very beautiful. He said, אמר להם, אף על פי שמקל אני על אחרים, מחמיר על אני על עצמי. Look, I can be lenient to everybody else, but to myself, in my personal decision, my personal life, I can be much strict, right? So I ask you a question. So why today you don't do that? soon we discuss it. But I give you a small example. The great Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. So he, for example, allow people to use soap on Shabbat, which means if you have soap, if you have, let's say, two different categories of soap. We're talking about soap that basically, preferably that don't change the color. You know, you take a blue one, or use it in the hand, and it turns white, right? So they ask him if it's that chashash nolad, because you're creating something, it changed something. For example, you take hard one, and you use it. So Moshe Feinstein, in general, he allowed that, which means especially soft one that you use to clean your hands, right? So he allowed that. Yet, in his own household, he didn't allow it. The same idea. So, person can be more lenient, especially a posek to others, but for himself, he can be much stricter. Anyway. So, Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera היה אומר, אין דברי תורה מקבלים טומאה, that's crucial. Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said here, that's a late Tana. He said, the whole sugya have ma'apach. You see, if you watch any past, those who miss classes, you watch the people, you see that we still discuss Baal Keri in different positions. Why is that? Because it's a discussion, and we need to get to the point of conclusion, so sometimes we bring the halachot. Here, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera turned around the whole discussion. And what did he say? He said here, Baal Keri can study Torah. Why? Because he holds that divrei Torah lo mekablim tuma. The Torah, the word of Torah, it's not accepting any impurity. So basically what a person should do, wash his hand, right? I add to that, put a coin in a charity box, right? And then go ahead, if there's no mikveh around him, right? מעשה בתלמיד חכם שהיה מגמגם. Rashi explained him what is מגמגם. בעל קרי היה, which means that he did it quickly, the way that we said earlier. למעלה מרבי יהודה בן בתורה. אמר לי, בני, פתח פיך ויראו דבריך, שאין דברי תורה מקבלים טומאה. These students, he was like stammering. He wasn't comfortable to say divrei Torah. So he said to him, don't worry about it. You open your mouth and you say divrei Torah, because what we just said, the word of Torah, do not contact tum'ah, don't contact impurity. שנאמר, it's written, הלא כל דברים כאש נאום השם. Behold, my word are like fire, says God, right? That's a famous sentence in Jeremiah. מה האש אינו מקבל טומאה, ודברי תורה אינם מקבלים טומאה. The same way that fire is not accepting impurity, the same way that Torah is not accepting impurity. So what we learned so far? So Rabbi Dr. turned all the thing around. He says, you don't talk about whom? About the person, the Baal Keri. You're talking about the Torah. And since the Torah itself not accepting any type of impurities, therefore you allow a person to go ahead and do divrei Torah. Mar. Since we said Matzia et Mishnah v'no Matzia et Gemarah, that a person can elaborate of what? Of Mishnah, but not elaborate in Talmud, which is, he all that is, the Talmud is like going deeper in studying Torah. מסייע לרבי אילאי, אמר רבי אילאי, אמר רבי אחא בר יעקב משום רבינו. רבינו here it means Rav. הלכה, the law is, מציע את המשנה ואינו מציע את הגמרא. Which means that what the din of Rabbi Eli is מחלוקת תנאים. The Baal Keri may elaborate in the Mishnah, may not elaborate in the Talmud, כתנאי. The way that the actual dispute between the Tanaim. Remember the Tanaim we discussed earlier that it's two different categories. The earliest time, the Mishnaic time, the 1st to the 3rd century is called Tanaim. The 4th and 5th is Amoraim. What they said, מציע את המשנה ולא מציע את הגמרא, דברי רבי מאיר, רבי יהודה בן גמליאל, משום רבי חנינא בן גמליאל, אומר זה וזה מותר, ואמרי לה זה וזה אסור, ואמרי לה זה וזה מותר. So according to that, Mishnah and Gemarah, מותר, אלא. מאן דאמר זה וזה אסור, כי רבי יוחנן הסנדלר. You remember what Rabbi Yochanan Sandlar said? Rabbi Yochanan Sandlar, Rabbi Yochanan, Sandlar, it was a job like fixing shoes, right? So he was a great sage. He said that he cannot do anything. You remember? He cannot enter even the Bet Midrash. Remember that? But Mande Amar Ze V'Ze Mutar, Ki Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. Which mean what Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said? That Divrei Torah Einam Mekablim Tuma. That the word of Torah is not accepting any type of impurity. Amar Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak, Nahug al Makan Etlat Savei. The world follow with these three elders, which means lekula, to be lenient. So now we give you several things, and soon you see how it's connected to our sugya. Rabbi Alai Bereshit Agez. We are running short in time, so I just give you the abbreviation. Bereshit Agez, it's when we talk about the mitzvah of kilayim, so they have the idea, I'm sorry, talking about the mitzvah of Bereshit Agez, the Torah, they say that every year, when one shears his sheep, he must give the first to the Kohen, right? So they don't say how much should be given. So they say that it's at least 1 of 60 of the total yield. That's what Rashi here explained. Okay, now soon we elaborate on that. Rabbi Yoshua bekilayim, the son of kilayim is the mixture, which means it's a kilayim. There are two different type of species of crops together. So again, we discuss it. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera b'divrei Torah. That's the key that we discuss here. That the law of Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said that a Baal Keri can recite divrei Torah. Now we elaborate. Rabbi Elazar bereshit agez, with the statement that follow Rabbi Eli in respect to the first of shearing, refer the Tanya Rabbi Eli omer reshit agez no negel ba'aretz. When they cutting those part of the shear of the sheep. So this it's a Gezerah Shavah. Gezerah Shavah is one of the 13 principles of Rabbi Ishmael, that you learn one word and another word and you compare them. So since it's written 2 times the word Reshit son, so he hold that's the Tanya Rabbi Eli Omer Reshit Agez no nogel ba'aretz. The obligation first of shearing, they give it to Kohen, apply only
Eretz Yisrael.
כי רבי יהושע בכליים, ופעל רבי יהושע עם כליים, נכתיב לא תזרק כרמך כליים, the Torah said that you do not mix two diverse kind. רבי יהושע אומר לו, למה יוכל עד שיזרח חיטה וסורה וחרצן? חרצן is a small, tiny גרעין ענבים, like a small, tiny part of, הוא במפולת יד. So in other words, until he plants wheat, barley and grape seed in a single thought of hand, which means simultaneously. So Rabbi Yoshua hold that the Torah prohibition against planting gilaim refers specifically to putting together a grape seed with 2 other species of seed in the same place. That's the prohibition. But someone asked me, a friend of mine, they asked me that they want to plant something in the yard. And they ask a question if they can have mixture. If you look, for example, soon we have an etrogim. So we have etrog murkav and bilti murkav. Murkav, it means that it was, when they planted, it was a mixture of more than one species, so the etrog looks nicer, right? So it's a question. So here that's Rabbi Yoshua opinion. Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, that's the third one. Bedivrei Torah, that's the sugya shelanu. That's what we discuss here. That the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera omer, divrei Torah, ein divrei Torah mekablim Torah. The word of Torah do not contact Tumah, and therefore you don't need to litbol, you don't need to duck yourself in the mikveh, in a case you don't have to. In other words, if you don't, you're not in a situation that you can find a closed mikveh, so then it's enough, to wash your hand. Ki ata ze'iri, batluha letviluta. Okay? If you tell me, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, that it's not accepting Tuma, so when Zeiri is one of the great rabbis, came to the land of Israel, came from the land of Israel to Babylon, he said that they abrogated the immersion. The others said that they abolished the washing of their hands, which means all this requirement. So now we elaborate. Man damar batluta letviluta, ki Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera damar batluta lentiluta. Ki had Rav Chisda layetaman demehad aramaya b'idat eslota. So what did they say? They said that the one who says that the Iri words where they abolished the immersion is Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. He hold like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. Remember what Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said? Now we repeat it already 4 times. No, help me. What Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said? The
words of Torah do not contract Tumah.
Excellent. And therefore, we don't require
ducking in a mikveh.
If you don't have a mikveh there, right? That's his opinion. Manda Amar Batlut and Tinyuta, very good, I'm happy with you. Gilbert too, nice. The one who says that the Zeiri words will abolish the washing of the hand maintains that Zeiri is not referring to Baal Keri particular, Kihad Rav Chizda, Layet meaning like a curse, he condemned. Aman de Mihad Aramaya Bid and Slota. We talked about it earlier because it's an issue of timing, etc. Tanu Rabbanan. So the rabbi said, Baal Keri Shenatnu Alav Tish'a Kabin Ma'in Tahor. Remember, there are different categories. Someone who has a discharge. So what happened is, the kav is a measure of volume of 4 lugin, right? You explain here, there's several different shiurim, but here they said that the log being equivalent to a volume of 6 eggs, right? 9 kabin, there's 3.4 gallons, like 12.5 liters. Or others said at 5.7 gallons, 21.6 liter. There is a machloket between Reb Chaim Naeh and Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish, for example, hold that is 1.6 liter. Anyway, so he said that's the port and the whole. We need not actually to immerse himself in a mikveh before articulating the word of Torah. You remember what we said earlier? That's the story. You don't require it.
So that's, I mean, essentially that's like a shower then.
Excellent point. I heard twice from 2 very good colleagues of mine who studied years back at the yeshiva. I told you that one of the yeshiva I studied was the Itri in Yerushalayim. I have several very important rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael that they are friends of mine, and we talk a lot over the phone. So one of the rabbanim, he told me that basically all these ideas that exactly what you ask, it's like it's open-ended subject. So it's like נחום איש גמזו לחשה לרבי עקיבא ורבי עקיבא לחשה לבן עזאי ובן עזאי יצא ושנה לתלמידיו בשוק, which means it was 2 rabbis that like lachash is whisper this teaching to others, one to Rabbi Akiva ben Azai went out and he taught to a marketplace, meaning he taught to everybody. What exactly Ben Azai did? It's a machloket. Rabbi Yossi bar Ravin ורבי יוסי בר זבידה, אחד תנא שנאה ואחד תנא לחשאי. One said that he really taught in public, one said that he whispered, which means this idea of being lenient to the student. So as I told you, the two rabbis said that it's open subject. One of them said that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, for the Sfaradim, said that if there are circumstances, you are flying to Mexico and you are in a hotel, so you can use the shower as the b'diavad, some type of for men, not for ladies.
Yeah, because I'd read somewhere that if in the event that there wasn't a mikveh available for a man, that he should take a shower of at least 10 minutes, which I guess would account for it. The
measure of 9.
The measure of 9 kav.
Yes. So as we said here, the whole idea, soon you see the different categories. Mm-hmm. But remember, the first and foremost point is there is a lechatchila. Go to a mikveh of 40 seah. If not, then you go to the 9. If not, you can go by the Rabbi Ben Beitera that you wash your hands. Anyway. פליגי באתרי אמוראי במערב, רבי יוסי בר אבינו, רבי יוסי בר זבידה. אחד תנא שנאה ואחד לחשש. זה מחלוקת between the two Amoraim in the west, meaning in the land of Israel. What exactly Ben Azai did? One said that he taught it the leniency publicly, and one said that he whispered, which means that he just taught it not to publicize. מה נתן ישנה משום ביטול תורה ומשום ביטוי פליאה ורבייה, ומה נתן לחשש לא יודע בכלל נשורים כתרנגולים. Which means if Baal Keri search for a mikveh, right? So he should not involve in divrei Torah. If he has a mikveh around him, he should not. But if not, then he can go for 9 kabin and he become pure. But the whole idea here, it says a person said, "Oh, I cannot find a mikveh, etc., etc." So what did he do? It's talk about men. So what did he do next? He's not bothering to have relation with his wife because of that. So he's not fulfilling the mitzvah of puruvu. So that's a problem.
How far should he travel to go to a mikveh?
So it's a good question. You're talking practical matter. Yeah. Here we have just a theoretical discussion.
Yeah.
But in practical matters, we said the earliest we just came in, we said earliest that there are 3 different categories. Rabbi Ben Beitera said that we don't require nowadays. Soon you see that there are those pious people that go even for the mikveh. But soon, give me a minute, okay? So they said, Amar Rabbi Yanai, שמעתי שמקלים בה ושמעתי שמחמירים בה, וכל המחמיר בה על עצמו, מאריכים לו ימיו ושנותיו. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure that all the Hasidim will love this. He said here as follows. I heard several categories of leniency. I heard that they allowed even to go to Beit HaMerchatz, which means like Dave said, like a shower. And I heard that there are those who use 9 kabin. But he is giving here segula. He's giving here like a secret for a person to have a length of days. He said, since we have Takanat Ezra. Takanat Ezra was that the person should go first to the mikveh. And we said at Takanat Ezra, we don't impose it anymore. So he said, if someone really wants to go out of his way, to extra mile, so he promised length of life, he should go to a mikveh that have a 40 seah. So in other words, he speaks about what it's a wish for a person.
What about dipping in a regular pool?
So it's not a mikveh, it's just a dipping in pool, But the point is, you're talking about purity, right?
Kind of
mikveh,
water,
mikveh it's a different category. But what we said here is, again, what should be done, what can be done, and what it's okay. So he's speaking about segula, like length of days, length of life. Okay, go to even there is a man to mikveh 40 seah. If not, you go to the 9. If not, you just wash your hand because it's not a requirement. But here recommended that it's sure, if a person can do that, it will be awesome. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Ma tivlan shel tovlei shacharit. What is the purpose of those balei keri who insist upon immersing in the morning? Ma tivan, they said, what's the purpose? Hayud amar bal keri asur b'divrei Torah. He himself, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, said that bal keri cannot study Torah until he immerses himself. Achik amar, Ma tivan ב-40 seah. אפשר ב9 קווים. Why you need the 40? It's enough 9. מה טיבן בטבילה אפשר בנתינה? Why you asking a person to duck himself? You can simply pour the water upon themselves, right? אמר רבי חנינא, גדר גדול גדרו בה. The sages put a big fence around it. Why? דתניא, מעשה באחד שטבע אישה לדברה ורע. אמרה לו, ריקה, יש לך 40 שאה שאתה טובל בהם מיד פירש. So it was a Gzerat Chachamim, it was the Rabbanan, the sages put a decree for Pnuya, for single women, that they should not have a yichud with Pnuya. So here it was a situation that that someone proposed a woman to commit an immoral act with her, and she said to him, look, she used the word reika, like bull, Amaretz, you have 40 seah available. So he right away stopped. So it means that if it's enough 9 kabin, he will not disconnect right from her. So that's the idea that he explained, that's the idea of gather, that it's a good to have the highest category, which is a mikveh 40 seah. Amar l'Rav Yuna l'Rabanan, Rabotai, he says, my teacher, mipnei ma atem mezalzelim b'tvila zu. Why you believe with all this disparage this immersion of the Baal Keri that Ezra ordained? Why you believe that? Mishum tzina, because the account of hardship in a cold water. Efshar b'merchatzeot, you can use a warm bath. So 2.1, in those days it wasn't a warm water that you think in a contemporary nowadays. In those days it was some types of a warming water, which means almost like a cooking water, like making it like in type of bishul. So it's an issue of maim shuvin, because when you use the mikveh you need a pure water, and this is an issue. I remember, as a side note, when I was a resident of Yerushalayim, it was the Chebinerov story about him, that he it's an issue of Shabbat to go to a mikveh that it's warm, right? Because there are some poskim that hold is a problem. So he went to a mikveh on Shabbos morning, and he went down in the stairs, and suddenly he realized that he's warm, and he walked out, dressed, and moved. And in other words, he didn't duck himself before davening, because he must probably hold that that's not good. So in other words, using a warm bath is an issue sometimes. But here, it's a different category, especially in those days. Amar le Rav Chizda, Amar le Ravada barava kai kvatech, which means you cannot warm at the mikveh, you need to have a pure mikveh of 40 seah. A related incident. Rabbi Zera Yativ be'agana demaya bei masita. right? He used to have a like utensil full of water in the bathhouse at the time that you have a issue of someone who's discharged. אמר לשמאי זיל והייתי לי 9 קבין. He asked his shamas to bring him 9 cabin of water, ושדי לוואי, and cast it on me. אמר לי רב חייא בר אבא, ולמה למרקו להי? ויתיב בגבי. Right? You can sit in this account of water. Why you need to have the 9 cabin pour on you? אמר לי, כ-40 שאה. It's just immersed for 40 שאה. Must be done in a certain fashion. So too, rinsing the 9 cabin must be done in a certain fashion. So it means that is the same category. מה 40 שאה בטבילה בלא נתינה? אף 9 cabin, in a sense, only בנתינה ולא בטבילה. Right, the same way, so too, 9 cabin affect purification through puring only and not through immersion. So he basically expressed the whole idea of 9 cabin, that it's much easier before it to purify before it tevila. Rav Nachman tiken chatzba בת 9 cabin. Rav Nachman he put a decree to prepare a vessel having a volume of 9 cabin to use for his student every day. כי את הרב דימי אמר, רבי עקיבא ורבי יהודה גלוסטרה אמרו, לא שמרו על החולה לא נשוא, אבל חולה המרגיל 40 שאה. Only at that time use 9 cabin, but a regular sick person you should not. In general terms, סתם תלמיד חכם נקרא חולה, but we're not going there. אומר רב יוסף, איתבר חץ בדרב נחמן. Rabbi Yosef said, the vessel of Nachman has in effect become broken, which means is no use for his students. The 9 cabin leniency does not apply to them. קריאת הרבים באושה, הווה אהודה, אושה is the name of place, that incident occurred, בקליעתא דרב הושעיה, עד ובשאלו לרבאסי. אמר לו, לא שנו לחולה המרגיל, אבל חולה, לאונסו פטור מכלום. It's 2 different category of חולה, of sick person. One is a sick person that it's it happens deliberately, and one that it's just happen unintentionally. So he said, also that a sick person, that bal keri happened just in a sense innocently, that not involved with any deliberation. Patu miklum, a person exempt, he doesn't ruin himself with any water.
What's the exact definition of a sick person?
Not at the earlier part of the shiur. We discussed earlier the difference between metzora and zav and regular bal keri. So we explained that zav and metzora is someone who have different diseases. So somebody like that, we have a different category when it's come to study Torah and Tzerva, versus person that somehow intentionally or indirectly cause it to happen. Okay. So someone who's just a sick person that have discharge, you can categorize him the same as someone who has something that caused him to create that situation. Okay, Amar Rav Yosef, Itzmid Chatzbei de Rav Nachman. He said the broken piece of Rav Nachman vessel had put it together, which means in order to hold this kli, it's enough to use 9 cabin. So mikdi, now let us see, kulu amurai v'tanayek b'dizeir kamif legebenechze ezra echatakin, which means, let's make it clear for those who just walk in. It was a different category. It was a time before receiving the Torah that Moshe put a decree for a couple of days, Moshe Rabbeinu, that they distanced themselves in order to receive the Torah. So that's, in order to receive the Torah, they have to have a state of purity. But then it was removed. In other words, it was lechatchila, but b'diavad you can do everything. Then Ezra, when he came back and rebuilt the Beit HaMikdash, he instituted a state of purity and require people to duck before praying, right? Then the rabbi said, category when and where you require what Ezra said. So they said, V'nechze Ezra echatikin. So now let us examine how Ezra instituted this ordinance. It is not uncommon circumstance, and we can see how they conduct themselves. אמר רבי עזרא תיקן לבריא המרגיל 40 שרה, ובריא לאונסו 9 קבין. Abaye said that Ezra did not institute sweeping ordinance concerning every case of one experiencing this type of bal keri, whether he institute only a healthy person who experience a normal seminal discharge and is required to immerse himself in 40 seah, While for a healthy person who has experienced, say, something that happened involuntarily, which means that it's not with his intent, only 9 kav seah, it's sufficient. V'atu Amorai upligi bechol eda. Amoraim, remember Amoraim is the rabbis that live at the 4th and the 5th century, they came and disagree with regard to a sick person. Mar savar chole amargil kebri amargil v'chole lonso kebri lonso. One sage held that a sick person who experiences a normal bowel carry discharge is considered like a healthy person who experiences a normal discharge. While a sick person who experiences something that unintentional, right, is considered like a healthy person who experiences something unintentional. However, umar savar chole amargil kebari lonso v'chole lonso patur miklum. Another sages hold that sick person who experiences normal discharge, all right, is considered like a healthy person who experiences something that's unintentional, and consequently it requires only that 9 kav be poured over him, while a sick person who experiences this type of unintentional exempt from any of this type of immersion or purification. Amar Rava, nehid etaken ezrat tefillah netina mitaken. Rava said that although Ezra instituted immersion for one who experienced this type of discharge, did he institute the pouring of 9 kav? That's not an Ezra, right? This is a basic kav. It's a unit of measurement from which many other small units are derived. So it's equivalent to about 1/6 of seah, or say like 24 egg bulk. So anyway, v'amar mar, we learned Ezra tiken tvila lebaalei krayin, which means the master tells us that the tradition that Ezra institute immersion for those who experience really discharge. Ela Rava Ezra tiken tvila lebari amargil 40 seah. Rava said that we must explain that the diverse opinion developed after Ezra decrees, Ezra himself institute immersion of 40 seah only for a healthy person who experience a normal discharge, and the sages came and institute that a healthy person who experiences and this type of unintentional should have a 9 kav pour over him. ועטו רבנן והתקינו לבריא לאונסו 9 קמין, ועטו המורה וקם מפעל בחולה. מר סבר חולה המרגיל כבריא המרגיל וחולה לאונסו כבריא לאונסו, ומר סבר לבריא המרגיל 40 seah וחולה המרגיל כבריא לאונסו 9 קמין, אבל לחולה לאונסו פטור מכלום. So it is a machlok, a different opinion in a healthy and unhealthy person. It's one opinion that we are holding as a regular healthy person, and one said not. So you see, Amar Rava, the conclusion, Rava stated, Hilcheta, the halachic ruling, Bari hamargil vechole hamargil 40 seah. Rava stated that the halachic ruling is according to the first opinion, which means a healthy person who experiences a normal state of discharge, and a sick person who experiences a normal this type of discharge require 40 seah. Ubari, and a healthy person who experiences this type of unintentional, he require only 9 kabin, 9 kav. Aval, but lechole lonso, a sick person who experiences in a sense involuntary discharge, patur miklum, is exempt from undergoing any rite of purification. Tanu Rabbanon, the sages toast in the Tosefta. בעל קרי שנתנו עליו 9 קבים מים טהור, במה דבורים לעצמו, אבל אחרים 40 seah. So for himself, if he's a בעל קרי, so they put him 9 kav drawn water over him, he's ritually pure. But it's all for himself. The Torah study for himself, but in order to purify himself, for him to teach Torah to others, he needs to go to what? To mikveh full of 40 seah. Rabbi Yehuda אומר 40 seah מכל מקום. Rabbi Yehuda said that he need to go to 40 seah require in any case. So what we learned so far, that they said that it's good, the whole idea of 9 kabin is if he wants to study by himself. If he wants to teach, he needs to go to a full mikveh of 40 seah. Rabbi Yochanan ורבי shua ben Levi ורבי אלעזר ורבי יוסף בר חנינא, אחד מהזוקה ואחד מהזוקה הרישא. So all these group of rabbis, there is a serious dispute arose from them, all these names. One member of the pair disagree with the others. Okay, one said, Chad Amar, since we don't know exactly who said what, we just know the names of them, so we said Chad. Chad Amar במדברים אומרים לעצמו, אבל אחרים 40 seah לא שנו לחולה המרגיל. אבל לחולל סודי שהקבין. One said that it's all of that we require. It's someone that it's חולה המרגיל, which means that someone who's a sick person that who experience a normal discharge, but a sick person who experience something that it's unintentional, it's, it's only 9. ואחד אמר, כל האחרים אפילו חולל אונסו עד עיקר 40 שיער. And one said that anyone who teaches other, even he was sick and experienced something that unintentional, right? He still is not considered pure until there are 40 שיער. ואחד מהזוגה ואחד מהזוגה הסיפה. And one member of this pair and one member of that pair disagree with regard to the letter clause of the Tosefta. אחד אמר רבי יהודה 40 שיער מכל מקום לא שנולה בקרקע, אבל בכלים לא, ואחד אמר אפילו בכלים נמי. One said that the 40 שיער is only taught in the ground, or law for ritual bath, but not in the vessel. One said 40 שיער collected in the vessel is sufficient for purification. בישלם אמר אפילו בכלים. The Gemarah now clarify the problem. Granted, according to one who said that the 40 שיער purified is even in the vessels. היינו דקטנה, that's exactly what Tosefta taught. רבי יהודה אומר 40 שיער מכל מקום. רבי יהודה said 40 שיער in any case. אלא מאן דאמר בקרקעין בכלים לא מכל מקום לעטוי מי. That one who said that Rabbi Dr. opinion is 40 seah in the ground, purified, but the vessels is not purified, not experienced. Any case to include, so what's include what? The Gemarah explained that this got to include drawn water. So drawn water, to include the word immersion, is drawn water was permitted only to enable those who experience some types of seminal emission to engage in a matter of Torah. Since their impurity is not very severe, the sages were lenient to their purification. That's what exactly the Mishnah said later. So Maim Shuvim, it's basically the part of the requirement for the mikveh. Okay, so it's not that Maim that you warm up in a sense independently. There has to be a drawn water. רב פאבא ורב הונא בן רב יהושע ורבא ברב שמואל קריחו ריפתא בעדי ידעדי. All these name of rabbis, what they do, they ate bread together. Soon you see, אמר לרב פאבא, הבל לדיד לברוך, נפול לבית אישה קבין. רב פאבא said to them, allow me to recite grace after meal for the group, because I am ritually pure, because of 9 kavin of water fell upon me. In other words, he poured over himself. Okay? אמר לו רבא ברבי שמואל, תנאינה באמת דבורים לעצמו, אבל אחרים 40 סאה. Rabbi Shmuel said to them, we learn that in case of this statement, that 9 kav purified, said, in case of Torah study for himself. But in order to purify himself, that he may teach Torah to other, by extension to fulfill the obligation to other, what he said, he must immerse himself in the regular mikveh of 40 seah. Ela, havul ledidi levaruch naful alai 40 seah. So he said, rather, allow me to recite grace after meal for the group, as 40 seah of water fell upon me. In other words, he immersed himself in a regular mikveh, regular ritual bath. אמר לו רב הונא, havul ledidi levaruch dileka elavai lahai velahai. Rav Huna said to them, allow me to recite the grace after meal, because I have neither this nor the upon me, because I remain ritually pure, which means I didn't go neither 9 nor the 40. So we learn from that the different category, right? There are 3 different categories: 40, 9, or nothing at all, right? Rav Chama Tavil b'malei Yoma de Pischa, which means, by the way, just to clarify, which means as follows: if a person doesn't have a discharge at all, so he's not bothering neither to mikveh nor to 9. There's the next category: someone who has a discharge and go to the mikveh for 40 seah. And the third category, if he doesn't have the 9 seah, so he pour himself, 9 kav. Rav Chama Tavel b'malei Yoma de Pischa l'otzi rabim midei chovatav v'lelchet akvatei. Okay, so it's also said that Rav Chama immersed himself on Pesach evening in order to fulfill the obligation of the masses, right? However, the Gemarah concludes that the halacha is not according to this opinion, that distinguish between purification for oneself and purification for the sake of others. Which means, again, the whole idea is that the whole point is we differentiate between doing something for yourself versus if you need to teach other, there is a highest requirement. Okay? Just one side of halacha before we go to the Mishnah. So halacha said, this is the Rambam in the Sefer Avodah Ilchot Tefillah. He said the Tvilat Baal Keri, the immersion of one who is impure because of this seminal emission. Although Ezra ordinance was annulled, there are many communities where the custom remains for one who experienced a seminal emission to immerse himself before prayer. They hold that Ezra ordinance was only repealed with regard to Torah study, not prayer. That's the Rambam's opinion. Mishnah. היה עומד בתפילה ונזכר שהוא בעל קרי לא יפסיק אליי הפרסל. Mishnah bring a different statement in regard to individual who different type of ritual impurity. So one who's standing in prayer, right? Prayer in general is the Amidah, right? And he recalled experience all of a sudden a seminal emission. So according to this opinion, is prohibited from prayer, so he's not interrupt his prayer. What did he do? He just made a bridge, each of the blessings. Yarad litbol. So one was descend and he went to the mikveh and immersed himself. אם יכול לעלות ולהתכסות ולקרות עד שלא תהיה הנצח המים ויתכסה ויקרא. If he is able to go up to ascend, cover himself with a garment and recite the morning Shema before the sunrise, which is the idea that we explained earlier, right? He should ascend, cover himself and recite Shema. ואם לאו, יתכסה במים ויקרא. If not, he should cover himself in the water and recite Shema there. ולא יתכסה, however, there is a restriction. He may not cover himself לא במים הרעים ולא במי המשרה עד שיטיל לתוך המים. Cannot use it in the fall water or water in which a flax was soaked until he pours other water into it. וכמה ירחיק ממנו מן הצואה 400. That's soon you see what's applicable to our time, but in general, how far must was distances from urine or all kind of different bad odor in order to recite Shema. So he said at least 4 cubits, which means if it's the bad odor or it's a urine around him, you have sometimes situation you are close to a sick person, elderly person, babies, right? So you have all kind of issues of they suddenly they lose the diapers or whatever it is, and you smell urination or things like that. So here he said at least 4 cubits. Okay? תנו רבנן, היה עומד בתפילה ונזכר שהוא בעל קרי לא יפסיק אלא יקצר. The rabbi said, told in the Braita, one who was standing in prayer and recalled that he experienced a Baal Keri, right? A seminal emission. He should not interrupt his prayer. What he should do? Make it short. Right? Next, היה קורא בתורה ונזכר שהוא בעל קרי, אינו מפסיק ועולה אלא מגמגם וקורא. רב מאיר אומר, אין בעל קרי רשאי לקרוא בתורה יותר מ3 פסוקים. So one is reading the Torah and recall that he has experienced this type of seminal emission, so he's not interrupt his reading, but rather he reads quickly with less than perfect diction. And Rabbi Meir disagrees, and he says that one who experiences this type of thing is not permitted to read even more than 3 verses in the Torah. So in other words, one may read no fewer than 3 verses in the Torah. So after they complete these verses, they must stop and let someone else continue. תניא אידך היה עומד בתפילה ורעש צועה כנגדו, מהלך לפניו עד שיתזרקן אחריו 400. מתן לצדדים לא קשה עד אפשר עד לא אפשר. Imagine that someone walk and all of a sudden he is praying, he's davening, and all of a sudden he saw feces or urinate or things like that. But he sees it at the front of him, right? When we used to go to walk to the Kotel, we used to go in those days to the Muslim section in the old city of Jerusalem. So you see sometimes they use the donkeys or camels or things like that, and they release themselves. And if you are praying while you're walking to the holy Kotel, the Western, it's an issue when you see those type of things. So here they said, you go 4 cubits either before or after him, and that's, by the way, halacha l'maaseh. You cannot daven, you cannot pray while they have these type of things, either bad odor, or you see something that it's not pure. היה מתפלל ומצא תשועה במקומו. The Gemara now recite another halacha. One was praying, and later he found a feces in the place where he prayed. אמר רבא אף על פי שחטא תפילתו תפילה. Rabbi said, although he's committed a sin, in his failure to examine that venue to determine it's worthy of prayer, that's what Tosefta said here, his prayer is a valid prayer, and he fulfilled his obligation. מתקף לרבא והזבח רשעים תועבה. Rava said in the book of Proverbs, the sacrifice of the wicked is considered abomination. So how come you tell me that it's okay? So the right that the mitzvah to perform inappropriately, it's not mitzvah at all. So consequently, the fact that he did not pay proper attention individuals to our prayer, and Amar Rava u'il v'chata, Rava said, because this person committed a sin, af al pi she'itpalel tfilato to'eva. Although his prayer is considered abomination. In other words, he must pray again. In other words, we learn from that the importance of praying in a proper environment. Soon we say the halacha, just let's finish it. תנו רבנן, היה עומד בתפילה ומים שותתים על ברכם, פוסק עד שיכלו המים, וחוזר ומתפלל, היכן חוזר רב חיסדא ורב נונה, אחד אמר חוזר לראש, אחד אמר למקום שבשק. The sages taught in a Braita, one is standing in prayer, when some person urine and flowing in his knees. So he must interrupt his prayer until the urine ceases, until he resume praying. So the Gemarah asks a question, to where he is the prayer, does he return to where he is remember the prayer of Chisda? Rav Huna disagree. One said it must return to the blessing of the prayer, and the other said must return to the point where he stopped. למה בר כמפלגה אלא בסדר agree about it. מה הסבר המשך כדי לגמור את כולה חוזר לראש, מה הסבר למקום שבשק. One sage held that the rule is that if one interrupt his prayer, he delay continuous prayer for intervals sufficient to complete the entire prayer. He returned to the beginning of the prayer, and the other sage held that he returned to the place the prayer where he stopped. אמר רבא שהי עם שעה. So we're now rejecting this possibility. Ravashi said that from the point of the dispute, he said if he stopped, אם לא שעה מבעיה, if he not delay, you told me that it's not right, אלא דכולי על מים שעה כדי לגמור את כולה, חוזר לראש. והתם דלה שעה כמפלגה, למר סבר גברא דחויה הוא, ואין ראוי, ואין תפילתו תפילה, ומר סבר גברא חזה הוא תפילתו תפילה. So this agreement is one hold that the man is disqualified and unfit, and his prayer is not valid, the prayer. Therefore, he must repeat his eternity. And the other sages say that his man is fit and his prayer is valid prayer. Tanu Rabbanan, Tzrach Lekavav. Now another halacha, Braita, one who needs to relieve himself. So, Al yitpalel v'mitpalel tfilatot teva. You should not pray, and if he prays, abomination. Amar Azvid v'item Rav Yudah l'shnu ala shenu yachol lishot ba'atzmo. He holds Rav Zid that only if he cannot restrain himself. Aval im yachol lishot ba'atzmo, if he can restrain himself, tfilatot tefila, his prayer is a valid prayer, and he's not, he can hold it until he releases himself. Vad kama, how long he can hold it? Amar Rav Sheshet al parsa. Rav Sheshet told as long as he can take one word parsa. Parsa, it's like 1,049 yard, something like that. איכא דאמרי דמתנא למתין, הרבה דברים אומרים כשאין יכול לעמוד על עצמו, ואם יכול לעמוד על עצמו, תפילתו תפילה. ועד כמה אמר רב זיו לפרסה. So again, so the European, אמר רב שמואל בר נחמני, אמר רבי יונתן, הנצרך לנקביו, הרי זו התפלל משום שתמר יקון לקראת אלוקיך ישראל. So Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani said, one who needs to relieve himself may not pray, because instead they said in the book of Amos, prepare to greet the God of Israel, and one must clear his mind and all the instruction to prepare to receive God during the prayer. So Hasidim, for example, put a gartel, it's part of a hikon, preparing like the Kohen used to do it, right? ואמר רבי שמואל בר נחמני, אמר רבי יונתן, מה דכתיב שמוע רגלך כאשר תלך אל בית האלוקים? What does that mean when they said in Ecclesiastic that guard your foot when you go to the house of the Lord, which means prepare to listen, etc. שמור עצמך שלא תחטא, guard yourself from sin. ואם תחטא, הבא קורבן לפניי. If you commit the sin, bring a sacrifice before me as an atonement. וקרוב לשמוע דברי חכמים. And draw near to listen to the word of the sages. אמר רבא, הווה קרוב לשמוע דברי חכמים, שאם חוטאים מביאים קורבן ועושים תשובה, מתת הכסלים זבח, על די ככסלים שחוטאים מביאים קורבן ועושים תשובה. So he said, be prepared to the word of wise, committing the sin, bring a sacrifice. So he interprets the next part, and he said, it's better than when fool give a sacrifice, that one should not act like he's full to commit sin and bring a sacrifice, but do not repent, which means it's meaningless, unless you're ducking yourself in mikveh while you're holding sherets, so it's meaningless. כי אינם יודעים לעשות רע. So regarding to verse that they did not do evil, that's from Ecclesiastic. The Gemarah asks, יחד צדיקים נינו, so they are righteous. אלא אל תהי ככסילים שחוטאים מביאים קורבן. Whether you must be understood that you're not like the fool who commit sins and bring a sacrifice. ואינם יודעים אם על הטובה הם מביאים, על הרע הם מביאים. But they're unaware whether bringing a thank offering or for the good or offering atonement for the evil. So it means, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, בין טוב לרע אינם מבחינים והם מביאים קורבן לפניי. So in a sense, God said, they bring they have no distinguish between good and evil, and they bring a sacrifice before me. He says, what's the whole purpose of that? So Rabashi vitem Rav Chanan Babar Shmona Kaveh Rav Shetu Mel Lefnei. So I would like to conclude with few halachot, just for a second. So one halacha is if he's standing in a prayer and he remembered that he's Baal Keri, so he have to, the highest level is he need to immerse himself, either 40 sal or 9 kabin. And the other halachot in regards to distance, we said that they have to have 4 amot. So if you are davening and all of a sudden is a urination or smell or anything, you have to stand, distance yourself at least in 4 amot.